That is going to be a tough act to follow, but we will try our best. Everyone, I am Ali, founder and CEO of Letter AI. I'm joined by Nate with Paro, and we're going to be giving you a talk about how generative AI is transforming revenue enablement. Our talk's going to look a little bit different than some of the other talks. Prior to even planning the talk, we reached out to some folks attending this event and some of the organizers, and one thing that we heard is, gosh, it'd be helpful to start with just zooming all the way out and covering a little bit, why is there such a conversation happening around AI right now? What is it about this new generation of AI that makes it so drastically different that you can't seem to turn a corner without hearing something about AI? Right, so we're going to zoom all the way out, talk a little bit about what is generative AI, why is it having a moment, and we're going to dive deeper into specific revenue enablement use cases, and then Nate is going to take us through practical applications at Paro. So with that, I'm going to dive right in, starting with some quick introductions, if this slide will change. Slide issues one more time. Okay, I will just start speaking. There we go, wonderful. So as I mentioned, Ali, founder and CEO of Letter AI. I've been doing AI my entire career. Before this, I was at a company called Project 44, which is a late-stage tech startup based here out of Chicago, where I oversaw a product vertical. My product vertical was called Data Products and Machine Learning, and I had revenue targets for my product vertical. And so that's when I first became obsessed with revenue enablement, because my revenue ramp was slow, and I got deep in the weeds with our sales representatives to figure out how we drive that up. Before that, I was at a company called Samsara, which is now a publicly traded IoT company, where I was looking after AI from an engineering perspective. And before that, I was in consulting for a number of years with McKinsey, advising Fortune 500s on their own AI strategy. Turn over to Nate to do a quick intro.
Thanks. We started this morning off about backgrounds and how we got into enablement. I would venture to guess I'm probably the only one here that started as a CPA. That is correct. So I quickly left there, don't worry, I'm not too big of a nerd. Got into finance and analytics, and that ended up into revenue operations, where I've kind of fell in love with the cross-section of enablement, go-to-market, RevOps, and data. So really looking forward to talking today. A little bit about Paro. Paro is also based out of Chicago. We're a Series C funded company. We just raised our Series C this summer. And we are an AI-based talent marketplace. So essentially that means we match finance and accounting professionals to on-demand requests for talent. So we provide CFOs, CPA services. The biggest differentiator for us is our AI-based matching algorithm. So if you're an expert on our platform, we will match you with the right customer based off of your profile, and vice versa. The right customer comes in from a specific industry with a specific need, we'll match, hopefully, to the right customer or the right expert.
Awesome. And we won't be giving you a demo of the Letter AI platform. If you're interested in seeing it, come by our booth or just email me, ali@letter.ai. Just a quick blurb on what we are. We are reimagining revenue enablement with generative AI at the core. So our platform allows you to automate the development of training, of coaching, of personalizing your existing content, and literally do that in a matter of minutes. We're a relatively young company. We've been around for about a year, but are lucky to have some amazing customers like Paro, Adobe, Lenovo, and many others. Okay, so with that, let's dive into the talk. So I'm going to start with a quote from Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google and Alphabet. It's a really profound quote. Sundar says, "I've always thought of AI as the most profound technology humanity is working on, more profound than fire or electricity or anything that we've done in the past." Right? Those are very powerful words. Why does Sundar feel this way? It's because AI is a new paradigm for building technology in the way fire was, in the way electricity was, in the way the internet was. It allows you to build capabilities that were previously impossible, right? And it's helpful to understand this better. It's helpful to understand what the previous way looked like and what things look like with AI, right? So to date, most of the technology, particularly software applications and hardware that we see, is built using rules-based systems, right? There's a set of rules that you program, an engineer writes, and that does something, that accomplishes some task, right? So give the example of content management, right? When you're sharing a deck using your favorite content management platform, view count goes up by 1 if customer looks at it, right? That's a rule that you program in. Works really well for a vast number of use cases and applications. Doesn't work well for many others. Think of things that are very hard to describe with rules, like the English language. You could come up with a million different rules. You're still not going to get every edge case, right? Think of vision, right? If you're trying to describe what a cat looks like, right? This is the famous example with how a lot of this AI work got started was training on cat images, right? You can look at the cat with different angles and you can have a rule for how every angle constitutes a cat, but you still can't be exhaustive, right? So to sum that up, essentially some of the rules-based technology, it's very predictable, right? It's well understood, but there's limited scope. AI is fundamentally different in that it's based on learning systems, right? So rather than hand programming a bunch of different rules, you feed a bunch of data to a model and the model figures out what the right output should be. That's why AI is so great at particular applications like language generation and vision, because those are hard to hand program. Like I'll give you one example of, I have a little 2-year-old, right? And he's learning a bunch of new words every day. And when he learns the word chair, he hasn't learned the word chair because my wife and I have sat down with him and given him all the rules for what constitutes a chair. It's because he's seen a bunch of different examples and he's putting things together in his mind. This is why people say AI mimics how the human mind works, right? So that's a little bit of the before and after. What that ultimately means that AI systems are less predictable. We have limited understanding of how they work, but they have a massive scope of capabilities, right? So just keep that backdrop in the back of your mind. We're going to be revisiting that throughout the talk. So why am I talking about AI now? Why is everyone talking about AI now, right? It's been around since the 50s for folks who are deep with AI history. Well, AI is more capable now than ever because of advancements we've had across a couple of different areas. We've gotten much better techniques for building AI models. We've gotten much more computing resources, and we've got much more data. So I'm not going to nerd out too much on this slide. But basically, one of the biggest innovations that happened over the past 5 years, the folks at Google came up with this thing called the transformer, which is a way of computing, of doing AI computations that's way more efficient than previous methods. That's what powers ChatGPT. The T in ChatGPT stands for transformer. And that's what a lot of these latest AI models are built on. We also have a lot more compute. Chips are getting stronger, right? We have bigger models. They're trained on more data for longer. And we also just have access to a lot more data. We have the whole public web, right? That's what a lot of these models are trained on. And we also have better ways to process unstructured data. So let's take a step back now and talk a little bit about impact from AI, and then we'll go into specific revenue enablement use cases, right? So we are already starting to see some tremendous impact from generative AI, and it's been, gosh, I think just about a year since ChatGPT came out, right? So one study that came out recently showed that consultants at the consulting group BCG were 40% more productive when they used generative AI versus not. They did this study where they gave half the folks access to ChatGPT and half the folks didn't have access, right? That's one example. We're seeing a bunch of examples, which I'm also happy to discuss with folks after the fact, with the customers of the Letter AI platform, right? So some of our customers, even if they've only been using the platform for a handful of months, are being able to deliver quality training, personalized training and collateral to their teams literally 10 times faster. It would take them a month to read through a bunch of different knowledge bases and product documents and whatever else, and then hand design a training. They're doing in the span of minutes. Literally, the AI generates it within minutes, and then they just iterate with the AI to get it to a level that they're comfortable shipping with, right? So that's today. What about in the next 3 to 5 years? A question folks ask commonly is AI going to take my job? And I think the response isn't AI will take your job, it's the people who use AI will take your job, right? I think we're going to see a lot more of this humans working with AI, workflow developing. We're already starting to see that in our customer base, where you're iterating with AI, and AI is making you 10x more productive. We're going to see a lot more of that. And I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see generative AI be a foundational component in most applications. And what about the next 10 years? By 2033, it's really anybody's guess. I put in a prompt to generate a robot salesperson, and this is what I got back. That's what you see here. And so, I'm not going to pretend to know the answer for what happens over the next decade. Folks are fairly optimistic in terms of AI adding trillions to the GDP. Folks are also fairly pessimistic. The AI could be a world-ending technology, right? Some people say. And so I think for us as revenue enablement professionals, the important thing is how can we deliver a better experience to our sales teams and our end customers leveraging this technology. So that was kind of part one of the talk, just kind of zooming all the way out, talking a little bit about AI as a whole. Now we're going to double click into applications of AI in the world that we all operate in revenue enablement. And there are so many. I'm actually just going to click through all of these. I'm not going to talk about every single one. But if you kind of zoom all the way out and look at the revenue enablement journey from finding leads to winning deals, onboarding customers, renewal and upsell, and underpinning it all, onboarding, training, and coaching, there are so many opportunities where the previous rules-based systems don't deliver the results that you need, that AI can come in and completely transform the way in which you work, right? So one example with finding leads is this automation technology to create compelling personalized emails that don't just replace a tag with a company name, but craft a whole narrative that's compelling and can get a vastly superior open rate than your canned generated emails that program a rule into, right? When it comes to winning deals, how many folks have like a Slack channel or a Microsoft Teams channel internally where people ask your sales team questions or product teams questions? I saw a bunch of hands there, right? That's a pretty friction-filled process, right? We were actually having a conversation at our table earlier around how product gets frustrated that they're getting all these questions from sales. Sales gets frustrated they're not getting responses back in time, right? The deal slips by. One way in which we're actually leveraging Letter AI with some of our customers is we have a generative AI-powered Slack bot that sits on top of your knowledge base, and you can ask that Slack bot questions. That takes care of about 90% of what people are looking for. And then when you have that conversation between sales and product and engineering, it's much less of a transactional conversation and much more of a conversation around understanding customer needs and closing the deal. When it comes to onboarding customers, how many folks have like complex enterprise software that looks very different for different customers? Anybody in that camp? I see a couple of hands here. So like Adobe Marketo is a great example, right? A Marketo implementation for one customer looks so different for another that you have to build a fully different onboarding program, right? And so one of the things that we're piloting with some customers is customer-specific onboarding based on the specifics of the implementation, right? And then the last two here, renewal and upsell, right? Understanding your customers that are at risk of churn, but then proactively engaging those customers via a conversational interface in your platform can be incredibly powerful, right? Hey, I noticed you haven't used X feature. I noticed your usage has dropped. Like, can I automatically open up my Chili Piper integration or Calendly integration and allow you to set up time with a team member, right? On the onboarding and training side, I already touched on this, but for many of the folks who work on training in this room, a lot of the content that you need to build a training already exists somewhere, right? Someone has to go and read through it, understand it, digest it, then build by hand questions and modules. Let AI do most of the work for you, and you kind of guide the process, right? And so what Letter allows you to do, for example, is just ingest that knowledge base. It'll automatically develop interactive trainings. And the AI doesn't do everything, right? And I don't think we're quite ready to just ship the thing after giving it to AI, but it becomes an iterative process that's 10x faster than the current state. So quick overview on the applications. I actually want to take a pause here before I turn it over to Nate, who's going to talk about some specific things that he's doing at Paro. Any questions so far? Any of these use cases resonate with folks? Like anything you're seeing either succeed or not succeed, right? Because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are a lot of places where AI hasn't quite met the mark. Would love to hear from the audience. Oh yeah, please.
How does prompt engineering make is there a learning curve for that?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. So I'll repeat the question. So the question was, how does prompt engineering fit into all of this? Which I think is a great question. So for folks who don't know, prompt engineering is this like art, or some would say science, of getting the best output out of AI, right? Getting really good at giving AI instructions so you get back what you're looking for. And right now, it's a very important discipline in the sense that what you ask of the AI can drastically determine the kind of results you get. The more instructions you give it, right, the more it'll stick to what the sort of responses and answers you're looking for. So it's very, very important. And for application developers like Letter, what we try to do is help as much as we can. So we give you templates to get started, right? What we know has proven to work in the past, that gives you a place to start. Now, one thing I'll say, and I've been able to sit down with Sam Altman, who's the founder of OpenAI, and what I've heard from some of the folks making some of the foundation models is these models are going to get better and better, right? And so prompt engineering is going to become less and less important over time because they're going to be able to learn what you're looking for automatically. So what I'll say is prompt engineering is very important, and application developers like Letter should absolutely help you get off the ground, get up and running. But over time, these models are going to get more and more powerful such that you don't need to spend, an hour crafting the perfect prompt to get what you're looking for. That's a great question.
I would say even over the last 6 months, that's probably changed drastically.
Yeah.
If you were to open up ChatGPT for the first time in January and do it now, your prompting skills needed are far less compared to then. So you've seen that already in 6 months.
Awesome.
Cool. So the next step from here is I want to take a quick pause and kind of reflect on a few things that we've heard today. And I want to put this in the context of what everybody has talked about from their personalized individual sales enablement or revenue enablement journey. On the screen here is 20 different use cases or processes that you may have. I would think about this as a subset of what your personal knowledge base would be in your role and at your company. Everyone has their own different way of selling, or the way of training, or sales operations or sales strategy. What I want to do is keep that context in mind for the next two examples that we walk through, because that knowledge base is the critical infrastructure that we're going to walk through to show that value delivery that comes to the sales enablement process. So first, we'll start with onboarding. And as we think in the context of knowledge base and knowledge management, the sales team immediately has what we'll call a conversational agent, some of us would call it a co-pilot, at their fingertips from day one. In this knowledge base is all the information that you've gathered and fed into the AI can use to provide training, onboarding, and support to that sales rep from day one. So for us, for example, we have a host of information from day one, basic sales training 101. But for us, for Paro, we sell relatively difficult, complex services to sales reps or to customers that require accounting and bookkeeping services. These sales reps may not have accounting and bookkeeping experience, or maybe they do, right? So this context is individualized at the sales rep level and at the service level that we provide. So what that means is, I'll give you one example, an AI-based sales coach. You've maybe used this in Zoom or some other application, but that is contextually unaware in the sense of, if I provide a sales pitch to the AI sales coach, it's not really sure what other factors are important or how that compares to other pitches that our reps have given. That's a huge value add for us when we know from day one, you've been trained on accounting 101, for example. Let's do a sales pitch on how you want to sell a bookkeeper to somebody that works in the automotive industry, for example. How does that compare to somebody else that has done that? Are there things that you've missed? The AI can pick up on things that you've missed, how well the pitch was, and then provide feedback based off of other pitches or other training materials to instantly provide value to that sales rep. Ultimately, what does that mean? That means our sales reps are able to sell right from the beginning. Is it day one? Maybe not. But is your ramp 90 days or 120 days? It's far shorter than that, and that's what we're already seeing. The interesting thing I also want to bring out for us is we're a two-sided marketplace. We have sales reps that sell both to customers and that use experts to provide those services. The AI and the knowledge base underneath that has to support both. Our experts need to know how our platform works internally, and our customers need to know what services we're providing. What we're allowed to do then is have this embedded co-pilot or this conversational agent to answer these questions in real time, to support our sales reps, to support our experts, and to support our clients with very limited human interaction. As Ali said earlier, it's human guided, it's human maintained, but it's far more scalable with one or two people managing the infrastructure rather than having a 10-person enablement team on a 50-person sales rep desk. So that's the first thing I think that I wanted to walk through. It resonates, I think, pretty well with so far in a very, very easy use case. The next case I want to walk through is risk mitigation. And this is where I think the value really comes to light. Like I said, the knowledge base is broad, it's vast, it's deep. But for Paro, we have 8 to 10 algorithmic solutions that help us provide solutions and make decisions on a day-to-day basis. One of those is a churn prediction algorithm. We are piloting and testing and building this churn prediction algorithm in our AI to help the customer success team make decisions, helps us prioritize our risks, and also bring in that lateral context of what solutions can we sell to them? How can we maintain this client? Have we talked to them recently? Should we call them today? What's their phone number? All this information is available at their fingertips in real time to help us make the most accurate decision and risk-based decisions to save these accounts. And I think this is really the value of a platform like Letter, for example, is it's not just a single modular application that I think most of us in the revenue enablement and sales enablement field are used to. This really brings in all of the information end to end, whether it's sales, customer success, analytics, operations, and says, what's the best solution for me? And ultimately, how do we drive, to the outcome that we're looking for, which is revenue? Are there any questions there on those two use cases, or anything anyone wants to add there before I kind of round this out? Cool. What does this mean for revenue enablement? Like a lot of talks or events I've been to on AI over the last 6 months has been kind of like open-ended. And this one gets me the most excited because using this tool and understanding the value here is really kind of the light bulb moment for me. To summarize this in one sentence, the generative AI transformed the traditional revenue enablement function from a back office cost center to an integrated go-to-market revenue driver. And I think that's a hugely valuable statement when you're speaking to COOs, CROs, and sales leaders. Rather than just maintaining your CRM or maintaining whatever host of applications that you use to run your sales departments, you're now in the driver's seat to understand what actions to take and how to drive revenue. I think it's incredibly valuable.
Awesome.
Anything else?
No, I think that was great, Nate. And I think, again, it kind of goes back to that first slide that I had around rules-based systems versus learning systems. If we were to try to do this with a handful of rules to get it to learn the Paro knowledge base and understand the Paro product, it's just straight up impossible, right? And so AI is uniquely equipped. And as you're thinking about your own applications for AI within your organizations, thinking through that lens can be incredibly valuable. And just thinking about how you give more leverage and scale to your teams, right? Coaching was a great example where if you have AI coaches that are familiar with your product, familiar with your selling processes, right? They can take the first pass of the coaching. They don't have to fully, take over human coaching. I think human coaching is always going to be incredibly valuable. But what the AI can do is take a first pass at it, allow you to scale, and then selectively sample and send the lowest scoring pitches or the highest scoring pitches to your managers, right? And that'll make your managers happy, the sales managers happy that you work with as well. So that's our talk for today. It looks like we're just about coming up on time, but we might have a time for a question or two. It sounds like we have a time for a question or two. So yeah, curious to hear any questions the team has. Yeah, please.
I think we've talked a lot this year about how AI is changing for revenue enablement professionals.
Yeah.
I don't think we've talked a lot this year about how it's changing what our buyers are doing. Even 15 years ago, we were saying 70% of the buying process was happening before they even called us. So what is this going to change for our buyers?
That's a brilliant question. I think there are a lot of changes that happen on the buyer journey side. So one is buyers can self-serve a lot more information and have that information be personalized, right? So to give you one example, I believe it was Coca-Cola that's been experimenting with generative AI models to automatically generate compelling images and copy on the fly, given information about the traffic that's going on their website. So they know you came from, a website that you may be more likely to react to a beach themed image versus like a mountain hiking themed image or something like that. So that's sort of like personalization for the end buyer. That's already starting to take off. We're starting to see a lot of that. We're starting to see a lot of self-serve so one of our customers is actually embedding our Copilot in their customer-facing platforms, and actually now they're working on embedding it in their public website as well, because the generative AI can help answer some of the questions that they have and self-serve, and you really only get those more qualified leads coming your way. So I think there's a lot happening here, and it's a great point to surface that. Yeah.
You mentioned using AI to connect with your knowledge base, but what happens with the knowledge base today? Like, what's the process of how AI helps with that content management?
Yeah, it's a great question too. So I think the analogy people use is like garbage in, garbage out, right? So if the knowledge base is bad.
I need to repeat the question.
Oh yeah, of course. So the question was, we talked a little bit about getting AI trained on your knowledge base. What if the knowledge base is not good, right? And so there's a bunch of techniques that you can use. I'm not going to get like super nerdy into the engineering details of it, but there's different techniques you can use to flag inconsistencies in your knowledge base. And what we do is just surface them up to the user and say, hey, this document says this product is $4.99. This document says it's $6.99. Which one is true, right? And so you can kind of embed those techniques within the platform and then provide what the truth is. So I think that's one thing. The other thing that's been kind of interesting that we're exploring as well is using AI to update an out-of-date knowledge base, right? So if you have an out-of-date knowledge base, having kind of a two-way interaction where if you do get that out-of-date information, you can go back to the AI and say, hey, go back in that document where it says the product is $4.99 and change it to $6.99, that we're up to date everywhere.
One more?
One more question.
One more.
Thank you, Cal. Nothing.